Hi, thank you for joining me today on Honorable Outfitters. I'm really excited about this particular video because this is going to be educational in all sorts of different ways. I was able to get a deer. Now, if you follow my channel, follow me on Facebook and stuff, then you probably already know that I did not get a deer this deer season, unfortunately. But I have one next to me. And you may be wondering, well, how did that happen? Well, my friends, let me tell you, I did not get this deer in the most conventional way. No, you see that white truck over there? Well, that's how I got my deer. You know, you win some, you lose some. So instead of just walking away kind of grumpy, empty-handed, I'm at least going to process this deer, and it's going to feed my family and a couple of friends, and we're going to use as much of this animal as we possibly can. I'm going to skin the animal. I'm actually going to brain tan the skin and go through that whole process. So with this one particular animal, she is getting used for lots of different things, and every bit of it, as much as possible, is going to be kept. So I'm really excited about this little project, and this is going to be ongoing. But today's video especially is going to highlight the skinning of this animal. Now, I am going to use exclusively for this process the one, the only, the Nessmuk knife. Now, this is the Nessmuk knife that I am now collaborating with Holter Ironcraft and making, and we're going to use this tool for everything. And I was really excited with my oldest boy, who's going to be in this video in and out. The night that we took this and we field cleaned it, we actually used the Nessmuk knife, and I was giddy. And if you ever talk to my son, he'll tell you and regale you how giddy I was of using this knife for that process. But it made the whole thing so easy to do. I can understand why George Washington Sears, Nessmuk himself, chose this style of blade, and why it makes a great hunting knife. So again, this is the Nessmuk knife. Every single one of them that Mr. Holter is able to make before Christmas is already spoken for. We're selling those for $250. After Christmas, they're going to be $300. And this is also going to lead to some other up-and-coming things that I'm super excited about. And I won't talk about that right now. I'll talk about it in the middle of the video. But there are some great things coming up this year with Honorable Outfitters, and I would love for you to be a part of it because it's going to help you out. And anyhow, let's get to this. So this animal is going to get skinned, and how we're going to do is we're going to cut around the neck. We're going to cut at the joints on both sets of legs, and then we're going to pull and clean this off. Now, this has been hanging for a couple days, and it's just now starting to get kind of warm. So that means I also have to go ahead and process the meat of this, put it in the coolers. That way it can age for a while. Now, with deer, you actually want to age it before you seal it up and everything, and you freeze it. The longer you age it, which is about 3 to 4 weeks, ideally, in a nice cooler, about 40 degrees temperature, it's going to make the meat taste a lot better. Some people don't like the gaminess, and it's probably because it was not processed correctly. Now, I'm not saying it's going to taste like chicken, but the gaminess of deer does go away if you let it age out, and it's going to be wonderful. All right, so we're going to go ahead and switch over a little bit different angle and show you how this process is done. All right, now some of you have been with my channel long enough. You might remember this guy over here. He was a lot shorter in those much earlier videos. He has sprouted up like a beanpole. This is my oldest son, who's 13 years old and over 6'1" and size 16 feet. So he may look like a young man, but he's only 13 years old. So he's going to help me process this deer. He's my hunting buddy anyways, and he's skinned squirrels before. He understands the whole concept, but such a large animal, there's some nuances about it, and we're going to walk through that with him, and I'll give him the knife so he can make a couple cuts himself. If you have a young person in your life, no matter how old you are, getting out hunting and getting outdoors in various different adventure scenarios can go a long way of passing on the knowledge and experience, and honestly just the joy of the outdoor hobbies that we all enjoy. So I'm so happy that my boy here has actually wanted to be in this video, and he's just as excited as I am to process this thing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut the neck. I'm going to go ahead and hand the knife off to my son here, and he's going to cut right below the rope because we want to make sure it's one nice clean cut. We don't want a bunch of little cuts. We want one really good deep cut all the way around right below the rope. If you think about like your size of your thumb or so, that gives you about the right distance because we don't want the knife to accidentally nick the rope itself.
Thank you. So where do I start on this?
However you want. If I were you, I would probably come around and cut from here and just take your time, one deep cut. Okay. So get on that side of the deer so you can see. And you can always move the deer to suit you. You want the animal to work around you as much as possible. You don't necessarily want to work the other way around.
So
and you want it nice and flat.
Okay. How do I hold the knife?
I would come across like so and hold it, and then either turn the deer or walk around.
Okay.
You want it, like I said, about a thumb's length away from the rope. Good and deep, as hard pressure as you need to. All the way around. Good job. All right, thank you. Now we will see how deep you did it. Feels like fur got a lot of it. Yeah. There's a lot of fat tissue in deer, especially if they're eaten really well. So as you can see, he did a good job cutting through the skin and cutting through the hair. The hair on these type of cuts is going to be the biggest thing. Another thing, when we go around the second time around, we're actually going to cut the opposite way. So now that you got this scored, we want to avoid as much hair as possible getting into the animal. So we're actually going to point it upward the second time around. This is a lot harder to do when it's so high, but and take our time with it. We don't want the hair. This is not going to be one of those quick and easy because we are trying to save this hide, so slow and steady wins the race. And she's been hanging for a couple days, so that's going to make a difference too. Now there's two ways of processing the deer. Some people like to take the hide off the same day that they field strip it because it does come off a lot easier the sooner you do it. However, since I knew that the temperature was going to vary and I was going to hang it outside, I decided to keep the hair on because that keeps away a lot of stuff from the meat itself. If you are going to take this to a deer processor, you're not actually going to process the meat yourself, then doing it fresh is fine. Some deer processors actually charge you more for when you take off the hide, because some of the processors actually like to sell the hides to various peoples. Ooh, you did a good job on this side.
Thank you.
There we go. Oh yeah, you did a really good job on this side. Not much cleanup at all for this. And because the Nessmuk knife is not all that pointed here, you kind of use that as a guide to just zipper right through the skin. And when you got a good cut like what my boy just did, it makes it really easy to just follow it. If I would have seen that from the get-go, it wouldn't have taken me so long. Yeah, there, we're done. So the skin is completely separated from this point. and he actually did it right there. Now, knife safety is extremely important when you're processing deer, because or any wild game, because if you cut yourself and some of the animal's blood can get in there, you can get blood poisoning. So if something like that happens, then immediately wash it out really, really well. So again, take your time. This is not a race. It's a beautiful day, and we're just going to go from there. All right, so we went ahead and cut around the neck. Now we're going to cut the legs. I'm going to do one to show my boy, and then he's going to do the other. Now, again, we don't have to worry about so much about meat contamination with the legs, because we're not really going to save the meat in this area. This is the area here that we're primarily concerned about with the meat. All right, so we're going to use a technique just like what I do when I do my Civil War surgeon's demonstrations. This knife has a nice belly to it, so I'm going to hold it like so. I'm going to come up behind the leg, and then I'm going to do one clean cut all the way around. Now, to find where to cut it, you can easily take the deer's legs, and once you go back and forth, you can feel those tendons. Now, those tendons you're going to end up cutting through, but you're wanting to find and push just a little bit harder, and you'll see where the bones meet. You want to get right behind there. You do not want to force your knife too far into your bone, because that's just going to possibly damage your knife, and it's not going to do a whole lot of good. So try to get right there in that gap between the two. So we're going to come up through here like so. We're going to do one smooth motion all the way around like so. Now, I'm not going to cut this, because now we got to break essentially away the two bones. So I'm going to hand this over to my son.
Thank you.
And we're going to break it. There we go. So you can hear the pop, and you can kind of see how successful we are. And it looks like we did a pretty good job. Now, we're going to keep the tendons. We're actually going to use it to make sinew. So as you're going through, think about how you're going to use your deer. Can I go ahead and have that? And we're going to, thank you. We're going to go ahead and cut this. Again, get right. Now it's going to be a lot easier, since you can actually see where the bones are. And what you might be struggling with to deal with is that tendon, because it's going to feel like bone. But once you're in it, right there, that is good sinew right there. So it depends on what you're going to do with the animal. I'm going to go ahead and cut it, but if you were wanting to save all that sinew, you'd actually have to cut it from up here. So I'm just going to cut it, and I'm just going to save the sinew that's down the lower part of the leg. Like so. You can throw that off. Okay, now son, you're going to do the same.
Thank you.
Wash your fingers.
I'm going to feel one more time just to be sure. And I have no idea how good I did. Can I just break it?
Go ahead and cut through it one more time in there. Try to cut through that sinew. It'll make breaking the apart a lot easier. Now, pull up when you do that.
Oh yeah.
Watch your thumb. All right. So now, good. Hand me a knife. Thank you.
Oh gosh. You want to go ahead and do this?
We'll go ahead and cut it, and I'll show you the next part. Now the next cuts to take the bottom legs off is a little bit more complicated than before. With this one, you have a tendon that runs on the just right behind the rear part of the leg. That tendon is really important if you're going to use a gamble to hang up your deer. Now, as you can see, I'm hanging my deer up by the rope, by the neck. So it still can be nice to have those tendons in case you want to process your meat, you know, after you skin it and everything. But since that's not really much of a choice for me, I'm going to go ahead and cut right below and strip it that way. So there's no meat here to save. This is the meat that we're going to save. So if you have to cut downward, that's not a big deal. That was a lot easier when the truck does it for you. Now that you got your legs done, the next part is really just to separate, starting from the top down and using gravity, using a tremendous amount of force. Again, this has been sitting for a couple days, so it's going to stick to the meat a lot. If you do this like as soon as you kill it, it's really easy to do. There's some techniques that you can use that we're going to demonstrate in some of the harder areas, especially once you get around the legs. It's going to be the trickiest part. Now remember, when you skin the animal, you want to try to skin it with the blade pointed upward and use it like a zipper instead of pointing downward, because every time you point it downward, you're going to be cutting hair, and that means that there's probably going to be more contamination of hair on your meat. It's just going to be a pain in the butt to clean. So we're going to go upward as we make through these cuts. The first cut we're going to do is we're going to finish, if there's anything else left over, don't think so up there, but we're going to follow this path down the breastbone all the way down here. And that's going to separate it roughly into two halves. Down the legs, we're not going to worry about cutting the fur on these legs. However, we are going to worry about cutting down the lower sections when we get to that point. Right now, starting where we kind of left off, because it makes it a whole lot easier, we're just going to follow the breastbone. And if you have a good sharp knife, like this Nessmuk, everything is super easy. Practice knife safety. Make sure your head, hands, anything else is out of the way. And that should get us where we want it. All right. Double check. And it looks like I got through most of it, but there's a good chunk of fat. I'm just going to follow my previous cut. Like so. All right, now, as we open this up, we can easily see how the skin is going to separate from that. So we're going to get our fingers in here towards the top, start peeling that away from the meat. Get your fingers in there, work it. There's a tool that I made, and it's simple, that Native Americans actually used to use deer bone or elk bone for this purpose, but I just had a spindle from an old piano that I turned into a bar, and I made a little wedge out of it, put a couple teeth in there. That way you can go through and you can just hit it to help it separate. Like in these areas up here. And it looks like I cut just a little too deep in some areas. So before I continue, pull this out.
Sounds like a drum.
And you're hitting at the skin. That way it doesn't take as much fat when we flush this. It'll be a lot easier. Get between the meat and the fat, and just in an upward motion like that, and you can separate the skin from the meat. Once you got it started, it'll be fairly easy. But again, this is going to take longer than normal because of the setting, because it's cold.
Interesting how the muscles and the fat like intertwine together.
Yeah.
Is the meat like here edible?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Minecraft is made up of blocks and our world's made up of circles. You know how we're made up of circles?
Huh.
Or atoms.
That's interesting. Go for the upper.
Freaking deer now.
I know. I know.
Tree branch is cracking.
Another nice thing about this tool is in areas like this where you can stick it underneath the armpit, use it like a wedge, and then grab a hold of it. You can pull down. And now you got one leg out. You can do the same this side. Get down. Just like that. And now you got the legs done. And continue business as normal. No. And that, my friends, is one way to skin a deer. All right, so as you can see, now it's finally skinned. It's taken a while. it would only take like 5 to 10 minutes if I wasn't trying to do this on video, for one, but also if it was fresh, because it is cooled down and everything tightens up and it clings to it. So it takes a lot longer to do it this way, but either way, it works perfectly fine. Now, are you ready for the announcement? I'm really excited about this part. Starting in January, I am going to start a new group on Circle. It's a wonderful app, and on there it allows the sharing of files between members. It's kind of like an old school forum with a lot more options, including education options. So for something like this, where if you're just wanting the quick and dirty, YouTube's great for that. But if you're wanting really specialized nuances of different things that YouTube and the algorithm doesn't care about, and that's where we're going to be able to offer specialized courses. Some will be free, some will be paid for, but it's going to be a great place to connect people who enjoy camping. And one of the big things that I want to come from this are camping clubs. Back in the early 20th century, when motor camping became a big thing, they started camping clubs. And we've gone away from that, but I think, especially from what I'm seeing on Facebook and on talking to various other people and other programs and Reddits and things, like there's actually a need for groups, for clubs. And one of the things I want to do on this group is have different rooms, if you will, for people to find each other. And we'll be able to have a calendar of events and things like that. But we'll also be able to specifically teach those who want to start their own camping club how to do it. And of course, you could just get with a bunch of friends, but people who want to specialize things, it becomes a little bit harder to find people that are like-minded. This kind of goes back to my background in living history and reenacting. You know, I've done Civil War reenacting, I've done a little bit of Rev War and French and Indian War reenacting and living history, and now I'm doing 20th century. And generally, there's reenactment and living history groups. So we'll be able to break this down farther, and if you are on Facebook, then make sure to join my Facebook discussion group, because there's going to be a lot more details coming out on there. And I'll probably make a specialized video showing you all the different rooms and all the different features. So here in a couple weeks, this is going to go live sometime in January. I'm hoping it'll go live the 1st of January. It is going to be a paid membership, and there will be open areas that are free to people, but it is going to be a paid membership. And right now, I think we're going to keep it around $15 for joining per month. And with that comes a ton of benefits that, again, you just have to stay tuned and I'll update you guys. I hope you guys are excited about this. I'm really excited about it, especially because of the format. It breaks away from Facebook and all the distractions and the algorithms and things like that. This will be a specialized focus group just for people who like camping in different eras. So if you're into traditional camping, if you're into historic camping, if you're into RV camping or something like that, you will be able to find your niche, your community there. That way we can have get-togethers. And I've always had a lot of fun camping with others, but I digress. So I hope you guys like this video. If you did, please click like. If you're interested in the Nessmuk, then the details are in the description box below. There'll also be a write-up on my website, www.honorableoutfitters.com. So if you've never heard of the Nessmuk or you're unfamiliar with the history of the Nessmuk, again, it's www.honorableoutfitters.com. I also have a monthly newsletter. So if you're not signed up for my monthly newsletter with a bunch of really cool benefits to it, then make sure to check that out as well. There's a sign-up link down below in the description. Man, things are going great. I'm really excited for this upcoming year. I hope that you join me on this next step of the adventure. If you're one of my patrons on Patreon, you know, we've come this far and we've done all these things because of you. And keep your eyes open and your ears open, because I got a special announcement for my patrons on Patreon coming up. So again, thank all of you for taking the time to watch this. And I hope you've learned a thing or two, or not, I don't know, but leave me a comment below. I appreciate all of you guys. Have a wonderful week. Give a kiss hug to your loved ones, and I'm going to see you guys next time. Take care.